Unless we are playing a Ghost second version of Maliss, which would also be incredibly surprising.
Yeah, I mean, when you win the dice roll, you go first. You pick up that first card and it's a full loss. You think, maybe maybe second was the way forward. But I could make out a few other Maliss cards going on. So let's see now what Yestin's going to start with. Perulia gives you a second to pause. What do you think as well when you're shuffling your... Oh, wow, a pass.
Ooh, this is now the downside of Maliss, is that through the most recent Forbidden Limited list, it did lose a line of consistency. March Hare was kind of a stopgap to kind of give it back those 3 copies of the Underground, the Dormouse, and the White Rabbit that was lost. And Michael here, very, very well, is activating Instant Fusion. Yes, it's going to get met by the Fluvaros, but being able to use Instant Fusion, he does play a very interesting target, and this is very important because the whole strategy of the Ryu-Ges want to start searching. They do one search that leads into the other, which is the most important part. So being able to get into the Millennium Eyes Restrict does give him that line of protection against a Droll and Lockbird, and on the other side of that, is, in theory, the Ryu-Ge strategy doesn't really need to summon directly from the extra deck as much. It can just summon from the hand by getting access to a lot of their big level monsters, and all of those level monsters have 3,000 or a little bit less than 3,000 attack. So if it stays like this, unless Yestin has opened up a powerful hand trap in the form of something like a Nibiru, it could very well be a quick, swift game.
Instant Fusion, a card that has been so powerful for such a long time, but I've not seen many decks run it recently. You do have to devote a couple of extra deck spaces to it. What do you think of it? In a 60-card deck, you're willing to put cards in your extra deck to your 1 Instant Fusion. Are you saying, like, I mean, it doesn't look like his extra deck is all that important to him, actually, given what I'm seeing, and we're seeing duplicates of various cards and...
Yeah, that's exactly that. The Ryu-Ges themselves don't really need to rely on the extra. Like, their most pivotal card, especially when they end up going through Ryu-Ge Warzone, ultimately ends up locking them into only being able to summon dragons, worms, dinos, and sea serpents. So the best kind of option that they have to themselves would, of course, be the Varudras, being the rank 10 Omni-Negate setup. It does see that we're going to see Yestin here open up quite a good combo, so being able to activate Droll and Lockbird, being responded with the Millennium Eyes Restrict, and then following up with an Infinite Impermanence to make sure that that resolved is actually quite important here, because the whole premise is that we're going to be searching out the Misva. The Misva would then work itself into the War Zone, and the War Zone is the ability or the field spell that allows you to get access to your Dino, Sea Serpent, and Worm Ryu-Ges, and then ultimately special summon one of each from different locations, being one from the Banish, one from the Grave, one from the deck, and that's again 3 incredibly powerful level 10 monsters, and we all know that with very few times do we see level 10 monsters have a lower level of attack stats.
So that just looked like a pass back from Michael. Is there a reason he didn't attack directly?
I don't think there's a reason not to attack directly. I mean, you might as well. We have seen in the past, for example, Ash Blossoms attacking directly, but at least to get that 500 attack might be the difference, but you never know how important that could be.
Every life point counts against Maliss, you know?
Exactly that. I mean, you kind of make their capabilities of paying their own life points a little bit less. And we're going to be responding with a Droll and Lockbird off of the back of this as well.
Yes, he's probably got a... I mean, do you think he knows what's going on? He's just seen like one Ryu-Ge card, and then his opponent's passed to a Droll, like, not even gone as far as to make an SP with the 2 monsters on the field. That's got to be weird for him. I don't know. Do you know, is there a reason there's no SP?
Well, I feel maybe he didn't want to give Yestin the ability to draw an additional card because he was still under the Fluvaros.
Of course.
So kind of a semi risk and reward on that one. And as you mentioned, playing a 60-card deck, it's great that he's increased it with Diviner of the Herald to work his way to get to the Misfire more consistently, but then on the downside of that, you are walking closer towards the Droll and Lockbird, and Yestin did have that combination of cards that was perfect to out the Millennium Eyes Restrict. It does look like the Maliss player, Yestin is going to be able to move a little bit further forward. The Dormouse has been able to resolve, been able to banish the White Rabbit. That's going to be coming back, allowing to set a card, set one of the GWCs. And ultimately, this is kind of where the Maliss start to get going. There are some downsides of being having to deal with and face the Droll and Lockbird, but I don't think it's all out and out kind of end game at that point. You can also see that it looks like he opened up the Maliss in Mirror, and I do believe he's also opened up the March Hare. So the draw against Maliss is not as game-ending or as turn-ending as something like an Artifact Lancer.
No, for sure. It's one of those cards that I don't think you're too upset at all to see as Maliss, and in addition it means if your opponents use the draw and lock bird, it means they can't use a Charmy. So those are probably a little more difficult to play around. You don't really want to give your opponent a ton of cards. I'd much rather give up on 1 or 2 searches.
Yeah, and I think Michael is kind of reserved on this one. As long as he can... It's so explosive with the Ryu-Ge strategy that as long as there is not another... as long as there's not another draw in Yestin's hand, he should be able to flood the field very quickly, and that will kind of catch Yestin off guard. Not knowing what the Ryu-Ges can kind of do is also going to be a bit of a detriment.
Do you think he's going to survive?
I mean, when we've seen Michael's play so far, we've saw Diviner that guaranteed the search of the Misfar. So we know that Misfar is currently in Michael's hand. We've traded away the Droll and Lockbird. We've then also used an Instant Fusion. Oh, it looks like there's a Nibiru.
It's a Nibiru time. Yeah, I was kind of interested with Yestin's play to put the March Hare on the field when it looked like normally when you're playing Maliss, I feel like the lines are to go as quickly as you can into one of those really powerful Link 3s, be it Red Ransom or White Binder, that you can make quite quickly and easily, and then it gives you a lot of value when you can recur them back from the banished zone, get their extra effects. But summoning too many times and allowing your opponent to Nibiru before the Link 3 now, you suddenly don't have those like value bombs. You can get all this value just off banishing one card. And maybe it's going to be a bit of a punish for Yestin here by just putting that March Hare in play a little too early.
Yeah, I completely agree here. You definitely don't want to be passing over to Michael. And I think this is where the unknown factor comes into play, is being able to, for Michael to be able to activate the Misfar. The Misfar can then work its way into the war zone as previously mentioned, and that will start to get everything going. We can see that Yestin is also being very, very cautious. So it's kind of one of those ones that you do like to put your spells and traps into the pendulum columns, just to kind of preemptively or kind of play a bit of mind games with your opponent to say, oh, this could be an infinite impermanence in one of these zones, to kind of turn off the column completely, which ultimately would negate the pendulum zone itself. But with Misfar being able to resolve, what's going to happen here is we're going to be able to add a Ryu-Ge war zone. The Misfar will end up being destroyed and go face up in the extra deck. In doing so with the Ryu-Ge war zone, you have the ability to activate that. That will allow you to banish one Ryu-Ge, one Sea Serpent from the deck, alongside add one Dino, and usually send one Worm. That then still gives you the ability to activate the war zone, and war zone allows you to special one from every zone, and then before you know it, you have 3 level 10 powerhouse monsters kind of staring you down.
And is that a pendulum ritual there?
Yep, so one of the first pendulum rituals is the Misfar. This is the one that gets everything ticking. This is the one that's going to allow you to, as its pendulum effect, you get to add a non-pendulum Ryu-Ge card from the deck to the hand. Then you destroy this card. And he's decided to go for the Ryu-Ge search spell card, and the Ryu-Ge search spell card is going to allow him to work Ryu-Ge Rising, is going to allow them to work into the brand new card, once I get to it, lots of Ryu-Ges, is the Tensei Ryu-Ge Anva. So this one in its pendulum scale, you can't pendulum summons except Ryu-Ges, and keep in mind the pendulum scales are going to be from level 0, I believe, up to level 11, and all of your Ryu-Ges are going to be level 10, so you have that option available to you. You also have the ability that if your opponent activates a card or effect in response to the activation of your Ryu-Ge spells or effects, so being the Ryu-Ge war zone being as important as I've previously mentioned, you get the ability to destroy the Anva and then kind of negate in response, which is very, very important.
Yeah, those kinds of effects can be quite punishing if you don't know that they're coming.
Yep.
I feel like, because if you know, okay, maybe I'll just let my opponent's spell cards resolve, then it might not come up, but when you don't know that that's something that could happen, then you can easily walk into it when you otherwise just would say, okay, I'll just let that spell card resolve and save whatever interruption I have for something else.
Yeah, so as we can see here, Michael is resolving the war zone. So he's deciding to add a worm, being the Protoss, because it is a level 10 worm. He is banishing the Sea Serpent. He is sending the Dino, and now he's activating the war zone to summon one from every place. So one from the banish, one from the grave, one from the deck, which means he will have the worm from the deck being the Hakva. He will have the Sea Serpent in the form of the Cairo from the banish zone, and then the Kyoto the dinosaur, sorry, the Kyver from the graveyard. So straight away, 3 level 10, 3,000 attack monsters. He is currently locked into dinos, sea serpents, dragons, and worms. And the whole idea is to make sure that you can get 3 different attributes in your graveyard to banish and make a Protoss. We all know how powerful Protoss could be in this particular matchup, because if you are able to call Darks, you shut off complete access to your opponent's Maliss monsters trying to move into the next turn, if there is in fact even a next turn.
I was going to say, it looks like Yeston not got all that much going on. And it did look like did he activate GWC? It looked like GWC got negated, so maybe he did use it in response to a spell card.
Yeah, I believe he used it in response to the War Zone's effect to summon those particular 3 monsters. And then that's kind of exactly as you've seen. If you don't expect something to be coming and not really know about it, it can really catch you off guard.
Yeah, that's sort of cascading there, because Yeston not having a Maliss or his Maliss in the mirror. Is this nib token small enough just to be run over?
So I believe the nib token was March Hare, Dormouse, and Splash Mage. So his defense stat shouldn't be that crazy.
Yeah, if there's no defense, can you... Yeah, you're right. I don't think the Maliss monsters have that high defense.
I think it also includes Diviner, but Diviner isn't crazy defense either. It's like 500 defense, 300 defense. So it should be relatively good, but I feel Michael might try and play this a little bit cautiously. He might want to go into the Varudras just to make sure he has any type of protection for that last card in Yestin's hand.
I'd rather just make sure I have more attack points.
Yeah.
Much as I love a good Varudras.
So he does have another one of the brand new cards, the Ryu-Ge End. So your opponent cannot target Ryu-Ge monsters you control with card effects. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If a Ryu-Ge Pendulum monster is on the field or face up in the extra deck, which it does, you get to shuffle 2 Ryu-Ge monsters from your hand, grave, and/or banishment into the main deck, target a monster on the field, and destroy it. So he has the ability to out that, I believe, already with the trap card, and I think we're going for the lethal here. Oh, we've got the Bestial Magnamut.
It's going to put up a bit of defense, but is it going to be enough?
Yeah, I feel that this might be...
Because not only has he sort of got his back against the wall, but if you start to run low on life points, he's going to defend 3,000 of his life points, but that GWC is now in the graveyard. He's also going to have to pay another 300 to add back the March Hare, so he's not going to be able to use probably any of his big Malice monsters' effects very easily next turn, even if he makes it that far.
Yeah, exactly that, with 1,100 life points still left on his side. I think Michael's just having a look to see if he does have any Ryu-Ges that he could be returning to the deck through the Ryu-Ge End, just to kind of deal with the Magnamut. Here comes the Protoss. I feel this is where it could be very, very damaging having that Magnamut on the field, is Protoss can now freely call Dark, clear off the Magnamut itself, and lock Yestin out of being able to access Dark monsters for the entire next turn. So even the dragon that he could search off the back of the Magnamut wouldn't be able to be summoned until Michael's turn.
So yeah, presumably a Druid Worm is Magnamut's best friend at the moment. Can be searched, but yeah, as you say, no special summoning Darks is quite restrictive when your entire deck is Dark.
So now he has the ability to use the extra deck of the Misvar, and what this is going to allow him to do is it's going to allow him, as a card was destroyed, it can special summon it via its own effect. If a monster on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, while this card is in the extra deck, you get to tribute a level 10 Ryu-Ge monster, and if you do, you special summon this card. It is treated as a ritual summon, which is very, very important, and then you get to apply the following effect to destroy up to 2 cards you control, and if you do, you get to place that many Ryu-Ge continuous spells from the deck. Now, it's very important because the continuous spells provide different effects to your level 10 monsters. He looks like he plays all 3 of the level 10s, and he's decided to go for the Dino Domain, which is the aggressive option that provides all of his Ryu-Ge monsters gain 300 attack, and then Ryu-Ge Pendulum monsters and level 10 or higher dinos also gain the following effect, that when an effect of a monster on the field with less attack than that card, and keeping in mind that both of those monsters are going to be 3,000 attack, you get to return this card. You place a Ryu-Ge continuous spell that you control to the bottom of the deck, and then you get to negate the activation. So he's adding a layer of protection on that one. And then the Waterfront gives all of his level 10s the ability to return the continuous spell card back to the bottom of the deck, and I believe you return one card on the field to the hand. So he's pretty much covered all bases. Like, if Yestin was able to get any monster that is not a dark attribute into rotation, that is either going to be negated or returned to the hand.
Do you think it's worth even like showing Yestin all of this stuff? Like, I mean, I know it's cool and we're on the feature and we're having fun, but I think like he's presumably going to win on the next turn. Yestin has only got one card left, and it's a dark monster, so it's not going to do anything to the Protoss. I feel like you don't really need to do much to close out the game here.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. I feel that holding that information back can be very, very interesting. But then on the flip side, if I was Yestin, I would be making sure that I read every little detail of these cards to make sure that I am prepared for game 2, so that you know what you need to play around, how you can kind of deal with those. And those hidden effects that we've seen already don't play a factor in round 2.
Yeah, exactly. He's probably already going to feel like he got caught out a bit by that GWC being negated.
Yeah, and it looks like we're scooping out. It looked like the card drawn for turn was
Charmies. Maybe have some sort of generic side deck cards like the Solemns, which feel like they can come in against almost any deck.
Yeah, exactly that. So we're drawing the 5 cards for turn. Yestin looks like he's been able to pick up a draw on Lockbird, which we saw how effective that was. And we're starting off with the Chessy Cat. It's still better than round 1. We actually have a start here, a double Chessy Cat. And the benefit of something like this is being able to draw 2 fresh new cards and get you another monster on the field. Being able to instantly set you up with some Link 2 plays could be incredibly important.
Yeah, starting off with the Chessy Cat, I think when you start with Chessy Cat and you resolve it, you just sort of breathe a sigh of relief. It's super powerful thing to do. And I think if your opponent was going to respond with an Imperm or a Lancia, it would have been done there and then. So you kind of know that there's nothing to stop you, at least at this point.
Yeah, it does give you a bit of a check to be able to see what type of hand traps your opponent may or may not have kind of hard opened up. And I think that's the real big kind of test, is being able to go, okay, cool, I now no longer need to worry about that particular form of interaction. I now no longer need to worry about anything else that could kind of cause a couple of issues.
So I think it's going to be almost the first time we're going to see a full Maliss combo on the stream.
Yeah, let's also remember that even with, as we've seen previously, even with the ability of going like a full Maliss combo being able to work its way off, you still need to be very, very wary that Michael has the ability to play these Go Second cards. The Ryu-Ges themselves are all going to be incredibly powerful as level 10 monsters with 3,000 attack, and I can't really stress that enough. So even if there is no interaction, what you always need to remember is if your opponent has not taken any cards out of their hands, they haven't interacted with you at all, that then increases their chances that all 6 cards by the time they start their turn, it could be field breakers. They could also be cards that will lead them to be overly aggressive, and I feel the big difference in this particular matchup will be that Drawn Lockbird in Yestin's hand, and if Michael has the ability to stop that going through, because I feel when you're comboing on or combining the availability of a Drawn Lockbird in the hand towards a full Maliss Enfield, that could pretty much be game at that point, because you kind of want to try and pick the field apart, but then you also need to worry about a Drawn Lockbird, which is going to stop you presenting your field to your opponent.
How much defense do all of the Ryu-Ges have? Are they also like 3,000, 3,000, or like 3,000 0 and the Red Ransom just...
I don't feel that they have much attack. So if we look at the Dino only has 1,200 defense points. Then I believe if we look at Misva, which you can also get onto the field, that's probably the strongest one there with 2,500 defense points. Defensively, they're not as aggressive. Like the Pendulum monsters themselves will have the most. So the new one of Amva has 2,100. And then I believe that the others, the Sea Serpent and the Worm, don't have as much. I feel the one big difference that Michael may have is if he is able to get different attributes into the graveyard, that's where Protoss might be able to show itself, and that could be the big difference. Ultimately, you need to be able to search out the Protoss, but I don't see any way that you'll be taking the Protoss out of the deck. Like, being able to summon the Protoss down and then declare dark, not only will it clear your opponent's field if they are all darks, which most of the Maliss cards are, you're also then going to be able to shut them down from being able to access those darks for the entire next turn, which will allow Michael to buy time under a Drawn Lockbird.
But Protoss protection effect, right? That prevents it from being destroyed by card effects?
Correct.
But Maliss, of course, don't really do that. They're more of a banishing kind of style, so with that Heart Scripter we've just seen, it's going on a journey from the field to the grave to the banish back to the field, but it will presumably end up on the field. We'll also have a GWC to bring it back should the need arise. Going to have a good pile of Link monsters. But yeah, it shouldn't really be a problem clearing that Protoss before it can activate its effect for Maliss.
Yeah, exactly. I feel that another very important card in the Maliss strategy that they can be utilizing is the Dominus Impulse. Being able to utilize the Dominus Impulse can be very, very damaging to the Ryu-Ge Warzone. So even if Michael is able to open up the Ryu-Ge Warzone, there's still a lot of steps that need to be followed. You still need to get the Mistha face up into the extra deck in order to utilize it, and then to be able to do that, you still need to have the ability to search. Alongside that, the Warzone also needs to be able to add a card to the hand, send to the graveyard, and banish all in one move. So being able to resolve both those effects is very, very tricky because there is no other way to get a Pendulum monster from the hand face up in the extra deck without destroying them on the field first. You can't discard them from the hand because they'll ultimately end up in the graveyard, not in the extra deck where you need them to be.
One of the things Maliss has going for it, in particular, especially like post side, is all of these cards that you can draw these like non-engine pieces that you put in your deck to go first. Whereas in game 1, maybe you're going to be drawing extra copies of Fuelos or Molchami or something, but in game 2, you're putting in this just like absolute heat from the side deck. I'm seeing Deck Devastation Virus. I don't think this is something you'd probably side in against Ryu-Ge, but that is that's giving me flashbacks because I'm a big fan of 2010 Time Wizard, and it's an absolute menace in that format as well. But it's an interesting choice, I'd say, over I don't know, something like Different Dimension Ground as a target for Triple Tactics Thrust. Do you think he'll side that in here?
Yeah, exactly that. Looking at the rest of the side deck, I don't think there's... What I quite like about side decks like this is it's relatively easy to know. So straight away, when you know you're going to be going first, as you mentioned, you take the Fliverosses out. So then when you look at your side deck and taking a look at Yestin's side deck here, we can see Perulia is probably not going to be making an appearance. Neither is Artifact Lancer. I highly, highly doubt he's going to be putting XYZ on the course. So as he goes through his side deck, he's able to kind of narrow down exactly what's going to be effective for him. Deck Devastation Virus is not going to be an out-and-out amazing option. Mischief of Gnomes could put in a little bit of work to shut off the availability to the rank 10s. But even then, you're probably going to be increasing your consistency. You're probably going to be looking at the AI Meet You. That's going to give you more consistency in order to get to your starters, should you want it. Maybe you consider the Triple Tactic Talents, because at least with the Triple Tactics Thrust, at least with that will give you direct access to a Dominus Impulse or an Infinite Impermanence if your opponent does activate a hand trap on you or interact with you with a monster effect during your own turn.
We're seeing a pretty spicy looking combo here. Look at this. I'm not sure I've seen all these different code talkers. I mean, the Acco talker, obviously, the big one. But this other one, is that transcode talker?
Yeah.
Yeah, that allows you to extend a little bit more. I think every time I see a card like this, I think it's like every Malice player's attempt to find some way to do extra things when you've been Lanced, because, yeah, it can be a bit of a problem. But the transcode talker in particular is quite fun. It prevents things it's co-linked to being targeted. So that can come up, I suppose, making that Firewall Dragon slightly harder to interact with, making the Acco talker slightly harder to force out. And we still have the one bounce as an interruption from the Firewall Dragon. So it should be quite tough for Michael to get through.
Yeah, and this is also very, very important as well. So when you look at the Maliss Red Ransom, while this card points to a monster, it doesn't need to be a Maliss monster or anything else, the original attack and defense of all effect monsters your opponent controls are switched. And as Tom previously highlighted, all of the defense stats of the Ryu-Ges aren't as high as the attack stats. So it starts to make those very imposing level 10 monsters look a little bit more manageable. And then backing that up with a co-link transcode talker, which is currently pointing to the Acco talker and pointing to the Firewall, means that both those monsters gain 500 attacks, so they become a little bit stronger, a little bit harder to deal with, and on top of that, the Firewall can't be targeted and neither can the Accode. So even if Michael was to open up an Infinite Impermanence, for example, or, as we've seen from the side deck, a Ultimate Slayer, the only card he could possibly target would be the Red Ransom, and the Firewall will still maintain its bounce, or the return from the field to the hand. The Accode Talker will still maintain its negation, and the Transcode Talker will still provide the protection for those other two monsters that it needs.
So here we are, this is Ryu-Ge number 1. So what's this one do?
So this is the spell card that's going to allow him to ideally search for the Misva. The one downside of this one, or the benefit, is it's a quick play, so it can be activated in the draw phase, which is, I'm hoping, exactly what Michael has done here. It's going to allow him to add the Ryu-Ge monster from the deck to the hand. Making sure that it's being activated during the draw phase does mean that it is semi-immune from a draw and lock bird. And on the benefit of that, he's also hard opened up the Misva, so this gives him the other ability to make sure that that Misva is face up in the extra deck. He is piloting this very, very well to make sure he has all of the pieces where they need to be, so that his one search, playing around that draw and lock bird, is going to be absolutely important.
So the Misva is the pendulum. How did that make its way into the extra deck?
So off of the back of the Ryu-Ge Rising, you have the ability to then add a Ryu-Ge pendulum monster from your hand to your face-up extra deck. So you're able to add the brand new Anva from the deck to the hand, and then you have the ability to add the pendulum monster from your hand to the face-up extra deck. So it's one way of being able to bypass the ability of having to put Misva in the pendulum zone, destroying it, put it into the extra deck, and then having your first search be something along like the Ryu-Ge War Zone. He's now making sure that his first search is going to hopefully be off the back of the Ryu-Ge War Zone, and then also having the Anva in place means that if his opponent was to activate any card or effect in response to that, he has the ability to negate it. So if Firewall wanted to try and return a card, if a Code Talker wanted to try to negate it, he has that layer of protection. And also if he wanted to respond with like an Ash Blossom, for example, that could also be protected.
I got you. That's a really unique effect, like putting a card from your hand into your extra deck. I don't think I've ever seen that line of text on a card before, to be honest.
Well, that's exactly what the Ryu-Ge's kind of needed, and I really do like that fact that it's kind of been considered how can a deck fairly kind of play around certain interactions. As mentioned, when you start off with the Ryu-Ge Rising, that's a great way for it being quick play. But then your next step needs a search to then get you to a next step. You need too many steps to get the searches that you need to get your field being built. That being able to kind of play around with it and protect it is very important. And it looks like we are going to get rid of that Anva. Yestin has kind of learnt from round one. He knows how infectious that Anva can be and how protective it can be as well. And being able to banish that from the field does kind of put Michael in a position where his first search will be needed to be, from the looks of this, off of the back of the Misva, probably walking headfirst into that Droll and Lockbird.
Yestin just got to have a quick read of it. Got a lot of ways to respond if he wants to. He's got the Echoed. Firewall, probably not going to be used in response. It can only return monsters.
Yeah, I feel that if I was in Yestin's position
can it return
here?
spells and traps? Maybe I've forgotten what Firewall does.
Firewall does. Well, it can return two, so I am quite interested that he's activating it now. Target monsters on the field and or graveyard up to number of monsters co-linked to this card to return them to the hand. So you are correct, yeah. It's only able to target monsters on that one.
I don't think, yeah, pendulum cards, they're definitely not
they're
monsters,
still considered
right?
spells, as far as I'm aware. I also find that quite interesting because, I mean, having the Draw and Lockbird, I probably would have allowed that to resolve. I think this actually benefits Michael more than anything because of the Firewall's now used as effect. That's something that shouldn't really need to be happening. It looks like we're making a Typhon here. The opening hand from Michael doesn't seem to be that great. I mean, we saw a Ryu-Ge Rising, we saw two Misvas that were guaranteed to be in the hand, and we've also saw the Carbodedodon. So this is a Dino level 2, and if it battles a fire monster during damage calculation, this card gains 1,000 attack points during the damage calculation only. But you get to banish this card from the graveyard to special from the hand or deck, a level 7 or lower dragon. Normal one can be against the Maliss strategy. You also need to remember that it's a 60 card deck, so you need to make it as consistent as possible to see your side deck cards, and that's where you might also consider playing those, leaning a little bit more onto those triple tactics thrusts.
So let's see what Michael is going to do. One other note, I think this is the closest we've got to the time procedures. Only 7 minutes remaining, so depending on how long Michael's first turn takes, that could be a factor. And it can be quite difficult for Maliss. It has the ability both to gain life points, but also it does lose an awful lot of life points when it's going through its usual plays. So what is this first Ryu-Ge monster going to do for us?
So what you have the ability for, so this is the Ryu-Ge Hackvar. So this is the worm monster from the archetype. You're allowed to banish it from the hand to then add a Ryu-Ge realm Worm Winds. Now, unfortunately, the Worm Winds is not a card you want to be having in rotation, but as we've seen, Yestin was actually quite worried about what that can lead to, and I feel that this kind of shows, again, a little bit more of unfamiliarity with the Ryu-Ge strategy, because if he had known what the Worm Winds was, Worm Winds, during the opponent's turn, all cards sent to the graveyard is banished. It will actually benefit the Maliss strategy. I can't imagine Michael would have left it on the field, but it shows the fear of the unknown by using Ash Blossom as early. It now kind of frees Michael up a little bit more here, as we've seen with Diviner being able to activate the Herald of the Art, sending the Herald of the Art Light. This then benefits him and knows that there's not a Droll and Lockbird in Yestin's hand, because being able to resolve the Misfar is going to work its way into the Ryu-Ge Rising, and I feel that we could probably be seeing an end field here of, I would imagine, Varudras. And I would be very, very surprised if we don't at the least see a Protoss come down, because if you can get access to the Protoss and Yestin doesn't have an infinite impermanence in the hand to negate the Protoss, Protoss being dark itself and unable to be destroyed by its own card effect or card effects in general, I feel that we're going to be hearing Michael call dark, which will really, really slow Yestin down for at least a turn. And then it will hopefully swing back to Michael on that one, and Michael will then need to try and get some damage on the field before the timer does run out.
So how does the deck search Protoss?
So Protoss is a level 10 worm. So off of the back of the Ryu-Ge Warzone, you don't even need to send Ryu-Ges, but you just need to have the ability to banish one of a Sea Serpent, Dino, or Worm, send a Sea Serpent, Dino, or Worm, and then add a Sea Serpent, Dino, or Worm. Each one has to be different, and as we're seeing here, we're adding the Worm in the form of the Protoss, we're sending the Dino, and we're banishing the Sea Serpent. There are additional effects that all of those Ryu-Ge monsters will have. Sometimes if 2 cards have been destroyed, you can special summon the Dino monster from the hand. If 2 or more cards have been banished that particular turn, you can summon the Hackvar back from the banish zone. And if 2 or more cards have been sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can actually summon back the Sea Serpent from the graveyard as well. So there's loads of additional effects that all of these cards have. And we're about to see the Guard Dragon Justica, which unfortunately, right now can't lead into a synchro play because the Herald of the Art Light, the Diviner of the Herald is also a tuner. But because 2 cards have been banished, being the Dino and the Sea Serpent, we've seen Hackvar return to the field, and we're now going to see what we mentioned previously, being a level 12 synchro. And I can only imagine we're going to be going into the Snake Eyes Dragon. And the reason that we're going to be doing this from Michael is he's trying to put those different attributes in the graveyard. The Guard Dragon Justica is a water, the Hackvar is a wind, and then we already saw at the start that he's able to put the Herald of the Arc Light in there, being a light. So here comes the Protoss. Protoss being dark itself. Nibiru. Yes, very well played on that one.
You can hear some of Yestin's fans cheering when that Nibiru came down.
Yeah,
a very large token.
Yeah, I feel it's a very large token, but this was an absolute pivotal point here. I feel that you needed to have an infinite impermanence, you needed to have a Nibiru, you needed to stop that Protoss resolving. The second Protoss resolves, you can probably feel that Yestin doesn't get another turn. I feel that, however, the pressure is going to be on Yestin. With only 4 minutes left on the clock, once it does pass round to him, he's going to need to make sure that he has the ability to remove that token. As you've already mentioned, it is a very, very high stat token, and then still get some damage on the field to kind of make sure that he's guaranteed to leave this duel with an 8-2 record, giving him all the more chances to finish in that top 32 spot.
So what are the plays here for Michael? Are there any more ways for Ryu-Ge to extend? I guess not. He just seems to be passing.
I feel now that Michael is going to need to rely on any particular hand traps he has. I would like to feel that in the draw phase, if there was a Lancer, that would have been used, and that would have been game-changing as well, unless he wants to hold it here for a bit of life points to be paid, and then chain the Lancia, but that doesn't look like that is unfortunately going to happen.
Yeah, one tiny little interaction is if your opponent summons Dormouse, you actually want to use Lancia straight away, because if you let the Dormouse activate, your opponent's monsters will gain 600 attack this turn. So even if you prevent them from banishing anything, it's worth it just to prevent all of the Maliss monsters from gaining 600 extra attack.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're just reading the Hackvar now. So banish this card from hand, add a Worm Wind. If a monster is banished face up, this card is already banished, and there are at least 2 other banished monsters that are not itself, except during dash that you get to special summon this banished card. So as White Rabbit was banished, I believe the play was to try and revive the Hackva because it doesn't require you.
So he tried to revive it.
Yeah, but I don't believe it's a quick effect. I don't think it's a trigger effect. And there are now at least 2 other banished monsters that are not.
Yeah, it looks like
it doesn't.
effect.
Yeah, because it doesn't say during that turn or anything else like that. So I believe the Hackva could possibly come back here.
Yeah, it was impulsed.
Ah, it was impulsed. Okay.
So yes, and just needs to play fast enough, I guess, and hope there's no interruptions coming from Michael. He knows there's no Lanciers. Nibiru could potentially be a bit of a thorn, but I'm not sure with this amount of time on the clock that you have the luxury of playing around it.
No, I feel at this particular point that the most important thing for Yestin is either to push through, get damage on the field after removing that token, or he's going to have to rely on the GWC to revive back a Maliss monster and gain the life points that way.
Yeah, getting rid of the token, I feel like the Maliss removal, oh, here comes access code, I suppose. That's always quite good removal. I was thinking you do need like either one of the non-target banishes in the form of Heart Scriptor or access code or SP, but SP obviously would prevent you from attacking directly, so we don't really want to do that.
Yeah, and it looks like Yestin is going straight to that battle phase, and they shake their hand on that. Very, very good.